This summer, turn your gifting game up during the Summer Plant and Garden Sale at 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, you can score up to 30% off succulents, bonsais, fresh-cut blooms, and more. Whether you're celebrating a birthday, sending a thank you, or a just-because surprise, 1-800-Flowers lets you save big on a stunning selection of gifts. Save up to 30% off during the Summer Plant and Garden Sale at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. Gift something unforgettable today.
In Chicago, there's a man who's not on ESPN, not super famous, but he's changing lives nonetheless. Jason Campbell is mentoring athletes to mentor youth. He's hosting yoga with fathers at the Obama Library. He's building the next generation, one connection at a time. And this is his story. Hey, welcome to the Black Fathers Pulse podcast. I'm Dr. Alvin Thomas, clinical psychologist and associate professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I study fathers and their children. But here's the thing. We don't hear enough real conversations about Black fathers, about what they're building, what they're dealing with, what they actually believe. That's what we're doing here. Voices from the Second City, Black Fathers Building Tomorrow, is all about real fathers, real stories, real impact in Chicago. Whether you're a father, a parent, someone who cares about family and community, stick around. This conversation is for you. Let's go. Welcome back to the Black Fathers Pulse podcast. This is the Chicago series. Jason Campbell is an athlete, mentor, community organizer, and founder of Brand B Sports, a Chicago-based initiative that connects professional athletes with youth and families for mentorship and development. He's worked on the ground in Chicago neighborhoods, understanding that the next generation of Black men doesn't need inspirational speeches. They need consistent presence, practical skills, and healed fathers. He's hosted Fathers Flow Yoga, powered by Axion Yoga, at the Obama Presidential Library, bringing together Black fathers and their children in a space of wellness, vulnerability, and connection. Jason embodies the quiet revolutionary, a man doing the work day in and day out, building community, one father, one child, one family, one connection at a time. Welcome, Jason, to the Black Fathers Pulse podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that.
So, Jason, I want us to jump straight into your story.
Yes, sir.
I think of some of the work that you're doing, especially one of the most visible ones, which is the recent yoga event, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But take us back to the origin story. Take us back to what made you decide to do community work with athletes and fathers.
Yeah, well, I'm from the south side of Chicago, born and raised in Inglewood. Inglewood is historically one of the most challenged neighborhoods in the United States. And, you know, that's kind of where my roots and my origin began, but it also is where my journey continues to take shape. I carry that and the lessons I learned in those streets and on those blocks into boardrooms at Formula One, at Bank of America, and all over the world. One of the things that's super important to understand about me is that, you know, my lineage and where I come from, my mother, with very limited resources, was a community organizer to her core. In fact, when she passed a couple of years ago, we had various organizations come pay homage to her and the work that she had done in the ground that she had laid in front of them for their organizations to be successful. So I guess we can say it's in my blood. That's something that I carried on to FAMU, where I'm a proud graduate of Florida A&M University, and that I carried into my corporate work and then starting my own business and own non-for-profit early on with Swiss Dreams. Swiss Dreams was partnered with Josh Mercer, and essentially it was a education and sports foundation, and we used basketball to teach kids mentorship, education, and balance. And so that's where I kind of got the idea of Brand B Sports, because we had all of these athletes come talk to the youth, and they just seemed to not have a connection with the community. So it was my job, and I felt it was my duty to really help them leverage their celebrity to effectuate change in the community. And that's a journey that I set out to do.
And so when you think about, at least when I think about sports community, I can see some connections, but specifically Chicago. What did you see in Chicago that told you that that kind of work was necessary?
Well, when you look at any statistical data about like what moves human behavior, I'm a marketing background, so that is something that I'm a subject matter expert in. Young people, particularly young boys, listen to athletes. And so it was imperative and important that I, one, galvanize these athletes across all the entire sports spectrum and really help them understand the importance of leveraging their platform in the community to impact young people. Now, when you drill down granularly to Chicago, obviously a lot of people know about our challenges, but a lot of them don't know about the bright spots across the entire city. And so when I think of an ambassador for change, not only is it the new Obama Presidential Center, but it's also leveraging and amplifying and activating NBA and sports athletes to really galvanize these young people in a positive direction.
That's interesting. And so, what does that model look like? I hear the mission, but how do you help an athlete flesh that out?
Well, one, we start with what their goals are. What are they passionate about? What are the things that they believe in? What's their identity? And then we lay that across our capabilities. And so if you're into gaming, what we'll do, we'll partner with Kevin Fair and I Play Games, an organization that does a lot of gaming work in the community, shows them how to go to college for free for gaming, but also how to monetize those gaming platforms and relationships. And we'll pair them with an athlete and make sure that there's a community engagement element to it, where we bring in all the young people that are into gaming and make sure we help them understand the career pathways, the collegiate pathways, but also how they can break down a PlayStation or an Xbox and put it back together so they can be a resource in this new economy as we move forward. So that's how we do that. We really match our clients' passions with, what things that need to be done in the community, and then we move forward. In fact, on September 6th, we have an event, a carnival with Josh Okogie down in Atlanta at his school, Shiloh, that's going to really speak to the overall community element. There'll be games, rides, we'll be giving out book bags and things of that nature. So at the end of the day, what my sports marketing agency does is really take these athletes, match with their passions and their ikigai, so to speak, and then find out a way how we activate that, monetize that, but also create impact. And so that's what we're experts in.
So I find that really, really interesting. I hear a lot of the high level conversation where conversations are happening in bigger rooms, in very specific curated spaces. But I also hear some of the connection that's happening, that's coming out once these conversations have ended in the bigger rooms. I hear some of that community-based connection. Can you tell us about a specific moment, an athlete, a young person, where there's a breakthrough, and shows what's possible from the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I'd have to say some of the work that we've done around NASCAR and the work that we've done with LeVar Scott early on. LeVar is one of the only 3 Black NASCAR drivers. And I remember early on, he didn't have a whole lot of like momentum and stock as it related to his brand. But we, partnered with LeVar, took him under the Brand B umbrella and brought him to Chicago for one of the Chicago NASCAR races. And we took LeVar to just about every major hub and neighborhood of Chicago, from Inglewood to some of the basketball games that the Denard Bros were doing, all the way to yoga at Pro Train and various other spaces. And we saw the light bulb go off where he understood the assignment and he understood how important his connection, particularly with the Black community and the Black culture, is for him and for NASCAR, and his stock pretty much took off. And that was when he really embraced it. And
Mhm.
that's when you started to see a lot of momentum carry on. And now he's on the biggest stage of NASCAR racing on Sundays.
And so, what do you tell professional athletes like Lavar and others about their responsibility to the communities that they come from?
Yeah, it's their duty, and also not just the responsibility to the communities that they come from, but all communities where there are lack of resources, food deserts, and things of that nature. Like Lavar is from New Jersey by way of Charlotte, but he knows and understands that he has a responsibility to the community in Chicago when he touches down. Um, also Josh Okogie or Aaron Gordon, these guys do things globally in Nigeria and China, and Asia, and things of that nature. So, again, it's important for us to instill early on that, you do have a responsibility here. And I tell athletes and their parents all the time, hey, I do have an agenda. I want to be straightforward with that. Like,
Mhm.
and my agenda is really to help you leverage your celebrity to effectuate change in the community. And we really want to be able to direct those resources and dollars that often are not controlled by us
Mhm.
into a direct injection into the community, which is why we're rehabbing Josh's locker room at his high school, Shiloh, which is why he's doing the work that he's doing in Nigeria, Houston, Phoenix, and all over the places that he's played because he understands and he gets it. And any athlete that comes to our orbit, whether it's Chase Adams or anybody else, they really understand their responsibility to the community.
Why Chicago? I know you're from Chicago. You're from the South Side, but apart from because I'm from Chicago, why Chicago? What's so unique about doing this work here in Chicago?
We need it, and it's really important to specifically around sports, but also the work that we're doing in the yoga space. Like Black men need spaces where they can go and create balance and stillness for themselves. And I have had the unique responsibility of teaching that to youngest 7 years old all the
Mhm.
way up to 70. And that's
Wow.
something that I wasn't exposed to. I don't come from like a yogi family, and my mom didn't do yoga. In fact, I was thrown into it. I used to play basketball at the local YMCA 6 days a week, and I hurt my back. And so I was looking
Mhm.
for something to supplement that. And then they canceled my cycle class. And so I was peering into the yoga room, and then one of the OGs came by and he was like, man, you should try yoga with us. I was like, man, I'm from Inglewood. I don't do no yoga. Like, what I look like, bro? Like that's weird. And he was like, he slapped me on my back and was like, well, let your back hurt then. I was like, damn, he
Right.
right. So I went in, um, trying something new. I was getting to breathe and I was listening to the breathing early on, and I just started to feel euphoric. And I was like,
Mm.
yo, I feel high. And I was like, this not gonna last. So I was getting the poses and all those different type of things. And I was like, whoa, this is something different. And so after the session, I was just sitting there kind of holding myself in Shavasana, and everybody was packing up and I was just in a Zen mode. And
Mm.
my instructor came by and she said, are you okay? And then I said, no. And that put me on a path that I wanted to expose as many young black and brown kids and young men to yoga and the resource, the tool that it provided me. And I was 30 years old at the time, so that was 15 years ago. So around 2018, I went to Thailand and got certified. I was there close to 8 weeks, and we were doing 8 hours of yoga a day in 98-degree heat. And I achieved my yoga certification, but didn't even act on it until the pandemic. And that's when I was one of the first people that had COVID, and my doctor said, "Hey, if you don't keep moving, bro, you ain't gonna be here." So the weather had just broke, so I went on the roof, put together a whole class and situation. And as my confidence grew in it, I started to promote it on my social media. Then all of these athletes, professional athletes, because they weren't playing at the time, like, yo, bro, I'm about to lose my mind. Can I just come on your roof and do yoga? So I always in Inglewood, Washington Park, I had, a $500 million worth of athletes on my roof at one time. So yeah, one of the guys, I won't say his name, but his contract is about 350 million. And he was in tree poles and he lost his
Yeah.
balance and almost fell off the roof. I said, hey, don't watch yourself. Don't
That's
fall
an
off this roof.
expensive mistake.
Yeah, don't fall off this roof, dog. We got to get rid of you. We got
Right.
to build a flower bed over you and say, hey, we don't know what happened to you. So he laughed about it, but that kind of took shape.
Right.
Then I was blessed with the opportunity to do a yoga residency at my fraternity brother's gym. Shout out to Pro Train. It's in Pilsen. And that's kind of where the class started to take shape. So now I went from one class and one person to filled up to an adult fit class and a sports performance class where we really engage the young athletes and teach them how to create balance for themselves and make ambassadors to why yoga is important mentally, physically, spiritually, but also from a injury prevention perspective. And it's starting to take shape. And so that's kind of how things started to really flow, pardon the pun,
Right.
on this.
Thank you so much. It's great that we're talking about this your origin story as it pertains to yoga and how you came into it, because recently you created Father's Flow Yoga, powered by Axion Yoga.
Yes, so Axon is my company.
Axon, yeah.
Yeah, Axon is my company. And if you look up the definition of what Axon really is, it's the connective nerve
Right.
um, tissue and
Mm-hmm.
highways in your body. So it's
Mm-hmm.
intentional that way. And so that really creates the energy from your central nervous system all the way through your body. So that's why we named it Axon Yoga. I
Mm.
didn't create Father's Flow, but I
Okay.
co-collaborated with Daddy Victory Club with Corey
Mm-hmm.
Marshall and Miles and Marcus, and we created this yoga flow session specifically for dads. But I think one of the most powerful things was that a couple of my mentees were there, kind of helping out, but they
Mm.
joined the class, and I think that's super important because whether you have an active father or not, it's important for you to see Black men being active fathers, and so I hope to be able to create a moment where we can have those dads there, but also maybe some young college age guys there so they can see that and understand that this is not just hyperbole, but like you can see it, but also what the challenge is. So, you'll take the proper precautions until you're ready, until you have a
Right.
nucleus or a planned situation that makes sense to you. That was super powerful. And then, if you understand where the Obama Presidential Center is and how it has become a beacon all over the world
Mm-hmm.
for connectivity with the culture, with yourself, and things of that nature, it was only right that we did it there in the plaza. Super important. So, that's something that was just, again, intentional and purposeful.
I was going to ask you about that, and I knew just with the few conversations that we've had, I knew that there was no way that this was some accident that you happened to have it at the Obama Center, that there was some very intentional justification for why you wanted to have it there. But for those of us who were not there and not part of the activity, can you walk us through that day? What did you see? What happened
Yeah, absolutely.
between fathers and children? What was the vibe?
Yeah, the vibe was incredible. One of the interesting dynamics of like my yoga classes is that every single week there's somebody or multiple people in my class that have never done yoga before. And so with this Father's Flow, I would say more than half of the class of it was about 35 brothers there had never done yoga, and it was foreign to them. And so they didn't even know what to expect. One of the things that I said when we were doing our mantras is like, most of us in this class, if not everyone, spend our days and weeks serving others. So I want you to take a couple moments just to yourself. And for most of us, this will be the only time over the next week that you'll just have to yourself. So release everything from society's expectations, parents' expectations, significant others, and even your kids, and just really hone in on self right now for the next 3 minutes. And that's super important. In this society that we're in and where we are right now, we have to create balance where we can provide it. And you don't seek balance, you create it. And that's something that I've learned. Like, I do not waver on it. In fact, Doc, I take my yoga mat with me all over the world. It folds up and slides right in my
Mm-hmm.
carry-on because, I have to be able to create balance at any given moment. I'm managing so many different things. I have 4 businesses. I'm mentoring people. I'm supporting people. I supported both of my parents, my siblings. So, like, you can't just navigate life just constantly taking in what it feeds you. You have to stop that momentum at times and just really, ground yourself. And I ground myself all over the world. So I've been to 82 countries. Every single country that I go into, I take my shoes and socks off and put my feet in the grass and in the ground. So that's something that's super important for people, but particularly for Black men. Grounding yourself, because there's so much expectation and responsibility on us. How do we feed into ourselves? And Axon Yoga is a way that we create that.
And so I know you also talk about building the next generation. What does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah, so again, on Sundays, our yoga class can have the senior VP of a bank, some very successful entrepreneurs, some former athletes in there, and all the way down to young people entering college or currently in college. So if you talk to any of these people, whether it's Manny or Ryan, these folks that are in college, like, they know when they hit the city, hey, yoga on Sunday, I can show you text messages. And so I've created that brand, but also I've created an environment where these young men, one, are open to yoga, and two, part of Axon Yoga and Axon Wellness is also therapy. A lot of us are carrying these burdens up this hill, up this mountain, and we don't know where to go. The stigma still exists around therapy and things like that. So I really, advocate for all of my athletes and all of the young people and people in general to be in therapy. Every Black man should be in therapy at least once a week. So last year I was able to get 120 young people, people in general, in therapy. This year I'm aiming for 200, and we're tracking ahead of that. So I'm really happy about that.
So it almost sounds so easy, but I know that there's a ton of work that goes behind this. What are the challenges to doing this work? What does the system, if anything, provide towards doing this work?
Yeah, well, I think the key takeaway here or caveat is like, and I'll give this credit to one of my OGs, Tenny An. He's a Korean brother, and he has introduced me and reaffirmed me in my Ikigai. And for those who don't know Ikigai, look it up, but I'll give you the DVD version. Ikigai is basically where the overlap of community, your passion, how you make money, and how you impact the world is. And so that is a part of my Ikigai. Mentorship is the foundation and the institution by which my compass guides me. So I'm always going to lead things through my Ikigai and outward. I always tell my team with Brand B, I tell my young bull Caden and Courtney and them all the time, hey, let's get this money so we can do more impact, so we can get more money and make more impact. And that is where we are. And so, it's a part of who I am. It's a part of my Ikigai. I've done yoga with, what I'm saying, some very influential people from, NBA legends to one of the top agents in the game right now, who manages the top NBA player in the game. So, and they even be like, hey, we doing yoga when I touch down. And so, like, I've created this environment where people can feel vulnerable and say, hey, I need to tap in, and creating a space where it's like you can, whatever tapping in looks like for you, you can create that. But you have to create the balance. We don't seek things, we create them. We don't seek wealth, we create it. We don't seek balance, we create it.
I never thought about it like that. That's interesting. I know at the very beginning of the conversation, you talked about your mother being a community organizer,
Yes.
working in community. What do you think your mom would say about where you are today and what you're doing?
Yeah, I would tell, you know, my mother, even to her last breath, my brother told me that, he didn't tell me this for a couple of weeks later after she passed, but her last breath was Jason. Her last words were Jason. My mother, to be honest with you, was just always mesmerized by the rooms that I was in, the people that I impacted, the people that I knew, my ability to travel the world. I mean, you know, 10 years ago, I was hitting 12 to 13 countries a year. You know what I'm saying? While building my business, you know, travel and culture is a part of me. So my mother was just so, she was like, who, she would ask, she was just looking at me like, who are you? Like,
Wow.
how did you come from me? Like, I'm so
Right.
like, humble and meek. And you're like this dynamic person that goes and tells Formula One, no, actually, we're not interested in just handing out book bags. We're looking to partner with you to move the needle. And if that's
Right.
not what you're trying to do, Octagon will surely go pass out book bags, and you should go talk to them. And
Right.
so she was just like, well, why would you do that? Like, you needed the money. And I was like, I don't need the money. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, at the end of the day, it is my job to hold these corporations accountable for the work that they say they're going to do. And so, and I'm very keen on that. I don't waver on that because money is not what guides me. You know, it's purpose. And so, you know, when purpose guides you, you know, you lean into that, and it'll take you through various channels and tunnels of how to monetize those relationships. And that's where we are now, and that's where we continue to be.
I think this is really powerful. Even the and I'm connecting that with the idea of the ikagon,
Ikigai. Ikigai.
ikagai.
Hmm.
So if an individual in some other city is listening to this podcast and hears this and thinks, I want to do this in my community, I want to find my ikagai, I want to find that intersection of all of these different
Hmm.
pieces of me. Because I think the conversation I hear a lot is, go get that bag, go get that bag.
Hmm.
And my usual response is, to what end?
Yeah.
If you're getting the bag just to get the bag, then you may as well just not have the bag, because nobody's benefiting from the bag except maybe you, if you even, because you
Yeah.
have the resource and you waste it.
Yeah. I think what I tell young people all the time is this. I make, me and my cohorts make entrepreneurship look sexy. It's not. You got to be complete crazy to be an entrepreneur. Second thing is, like, learn on someone else's dime. So if you think you want to go into sports, or you think you want to go into law, or what have you, whatever vertical that you want to go into, you know, learn on someone else's dime. So go work in corporate and get the training. You know, that's the first thing. The second thing is, you know, you really, especially spend your 20s understanding who you are. You know, not what society and social media tells you you are. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to learn who you are. Once you learn who you are, now you understand what your compass is going to be. Then you can understand what your ikigai is. And so, you know, those are things that happen. They happen through therapy. They happen through trial and error. They happen through making mistakes. And that's the thing. Brown and black boys don't typically get to fail forward. So I like to try my best to create an environment where people can make mistakes. And yes, I'm gonna
Right,
jump off in your backside with both feet and teach
right.
you, but I do believe in making mistakes. And you have to learn from your mistakes. Some of the work that we're doing, Doc, at the county jail at Division 11, is super important. And we're about to embark on an 8-week program of teaching them yoga, breathing, and emotional regulation. But one thing that I always tell them, no matter if they're facing 90 years or 90 days, is that you are not defined by your mistakes. You know what I'm saying? And don't allow society or anyone to tell you anything different. You can change. You can change yourself. And if you change yourself, you change your community.
And along those lines of very impassioned, very inspirational statements, Jason, there are fathers who are listening and I know are feeling isolated, feeling closed off, who don't know who don't think that they know how to connect with their kids, who might be carrying their own wounds, fathering wounds, and other kinds of wounds. What do you want those fathers to know?
Well, what I've seen from my own relationship with my father was that those wounds and that trauma does translate down to your kids, right? It wasn't until I was in my late 30s that I realized, and I had to give my father a little bit of grace because of his journey. And he lost his mother very early and seemingly never recovered from that.
Right.
And so I was in my late 30s and I was still walking around with a chip on my shoulder for Dennis Campbell. And then I was like, I beat the expectations. I graduated from high school and went to college out of Inglewood. Like, I'm playing with house money here. Like, I'm a success story. You know what I'm saying? My mother was paranoid schizophrenic at 15. I had to get a job to help with the bills. My father was around. He was in orbit, but, wasn't really providing any real guidance. So I was just fending for myself and I had to be very independent. And so understanding that if you don't do the work as a father, it ultimately will translate and trickle down to your kids in one way or another, 100%. The second
Sorry, go
thing
ahead.
is understanding that you can provide a struggle-free environment all you want, but if you don't create an environment where there's affection and love and discipline, your kids will be impacted by your trauma, transgressions, anger, and inability to deal with your emotions and your feelings. And I've seen this across the board from mentees with dual parent households, 100%. So if you're listening, make sure you're doing the work, make sure you get in therapy, create spaces for you to release some of that responsibility, whether it's yoga or meditation or a combination of all those things, but you have to create those spaces.
So what I'm hearing is the things that we don't heal from, we pass them on as an inheritance to our children.
100%. And there's data to prove that too. So in every therapist that I've worked with, from personal therapists to collaborating with therapists will validate that fact.
Yeah, so if we don't want our children to have these struggles, then our responsibility is to deal with those struggles first.
100%. Yeah,
And
it's important. I think that because one of the young men who is incarcerated, he and I were talking about how his 5 kids deal with the absence of their father. So he and I are actually going to work on a coloring book to help kids of people and of men who are incarcerated deal with their emotional regulation when they're dealing with those feelings in a vacuum and in a rush of emotion. So those are the things that we're trying to put together long term. We have some other resources that we're going to be laying out called Echo Mate that will speak not only to that population, but also to the emotional regulation of, other human beings, and other populations. So yeah, but like we are locked in on that space.
And Jason, my final question: what do you want Chicago to be known for? What's the legacy that you're building?
Well, that's a two-part question. So the first
Mm-hmm.
thing is what Chicago is known for. Like Chicago is the best city in the world. And I can speak to that because I've been to every major metropolitan in the world. Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Shanghai, Beijing, Rome, London, Milan, all those places. I've been to all of them. And some do things better than us, but nobody does things in totality that we do from soup to nuts. Why Chicago? Because Chicago deserves it. Our young people
Mm-hmm.
deserve to have emotional regulation, but also have somebody who creates a space that acknowledges their feelings and acknowledges their trauma, but also acknowledges their mistakes and tells them that it'll be okay. We have to create environments for our young people to connect with older Black and brown men who are successful, and not just because they went to college or got a PhD, because they drive the train and provided for their family, because they drive the bus, because they're a plumber, because they're an electrician, and because they're an overall good person. You know what I'm saying? And so those are the things that are key on why Chicago. And we are at the precipice of an important inflection point in our city that speaks to all of that. And so that's something that I think is important to acknowledge off the top. Secondly, as far as the legacy is concerned, I've already had a pretty good run. I've made some mistakes, but my intentions are always in the right place. I'm pretty harsh, especially to the ones that I love, but I know that the traps that this society lays in front of y'all, and so I know that you need that so that you don't ignore the blind spots and the red flags. At the end of the day, I want to create spaces for young Black and brown and all people who need it, where they can come create balance, where fathers can come create stillness through mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual healing, and then make yoga and therapy and athletes giving back to their community the coolest thing to do in the world.
Thank you so much, Jason. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. Thank you for being on the Black Fathers Pulse podcast.
Thank you.
Jason Campbell is building Chicago. He's showing us what is possible when one man decides to do the work. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to show up. A yoga mat works. A court works. Your presence works. This has been the Black Fathers Pulse podcast. Man, I love these conversations. Thank you so much for being here. If this episode hit you, if you want more, follow us. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Let's build this community together. The Chicago series of the Black Fathers Pulse is made possible by the generous support of the Field Foundation. Music by Micaiah De Silva. Opinions shared on this podcast are those of the host or the guest and are in no way affiliated with the Universities of Wisconsin. New episodes drop every week. You don't want to miss the next voice. Until then, take care of yourself and the people you love. This is the Black Fathers Pulse.